This is Shanna Dethi at the Digital Health Live Studio at CES 2018, presented by United Healthcare. I'm joined this morning with Wain FIshburn, who is the Global Head of Digital Health for Cooley. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Lots happening, a little excitement going next door with some of these demonstrations.
Yeah, it's fun here at CES, as you know. So you're giving a keynote this afternoon, right, on some of the funding that's going on in the digital health space. So why don't you explain to us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, no, happy to do that. So I'm keynoting this afternoon, trying to wrap up 2 days of an incredible programming. And as a starting point, just a little bit about how I came to this spot. I'm the global head of the Cooley digital health practice. Cooley is a law firm with its roots in the Silicon Valley, but now has offices in every major technology center in the country and internationally in Asia and London. We have always been noted for representing the next big thing, whatever that may be. 5 years ago, we didn't know that we would be doing commercial launch vehicles with SpaceX or privacy work for Facebook, and I think the same is true of digital health. We have deep history in life sciences, and we spend an awful lot of time in digital. I was one of the founders opening our San Diego office about 25 years ago, and we opened that with the public offering of Qualcomm, which essentially enabled the smartphone. About 10 years ago, Qualcomm and Ted Torfey, the then senior executive with J&J, started a series of annual meetings where they really looked at where the convergence of healthcare and digital, and in particular wireless digital, may intersect. And that really goes back to ground zero of the industry. Since that time, I've been tracking it, working with a whole range of companies from startups to multi-billion-dollar companies, and always happy to be here at CES and kick off the year.
Well, great. So 2017, what kind of trends did you see across this space in 2017, especially on the funding side?
Sure. So I think you have to look at 2017 in the context of what had happened in the preceding 5 years. So if you go back 5 years ago, we were looking a lot at early numbers coming in, so $1 billion, $1.5 billion, $2 billion a year. Last year, according to many of the published reports, as much as $11 billion went into the sector, and that was up from 5 to 8 in the preceding years. The trends that I would have called out is the sector is more evolutionary than revolutionary. We're not expecting to see the kind of disruptive movements like you've seen with Uber and others in other sectors, but it's moving from point solutions to companies that are having more global solutions across the healthcare landscape. A couple of other big things that happened in 2017 was breakthroughs from the FDA regulatory perspective. They issued some guidance that made a number of things more easily accessible, and always one of the big issues when you're looking at the digital health landscape is whether you are focused on regulated devices where you actually have to go through an FDA clearance. You think of some of the heart monitoring devices, some of the respiratory systems, a lot of the continuous glucose monitoring, and you contrast that with, say, the consumer-facing fields such as Fitbit and others that introduced us to the world of monitoring our own body. So.
Great. And so for 2018, any predictions?
Sure. Well, again, I guess the backdrop of 2017, there was a continued high velocity of funding, but there were fewer M&A activities and no public offerings as contrasted to the preceding year where the numbers are pretty good on both, which is not to say there were not some exits, but from an investor perspective, you're always looking at whether or not this will be an industry to create breakthrough opportunities. iRhythm would be a good example that I always like to refer to. It's a heart monitoring device, the Zio patch. They went public, and I think they're about $1.4 billion in market cap today. Their 52 high-low was almost doubled over the last year, and they are now moving to expanding their sales force and building their infrastructure. So it's a good example of a company that took the time to go through the FDA regulated process to commercialize, and now they're getting into what would appear their early days of traction using this patch that is 24/7 heart monitoring that is particularly useful for patients that have suffered AFib, maybe had an interventional surgery or interventional procedure, and then they want to be acutely aware of when and if they may go back into an AFib. So iRhythm is a great example of a company that is built slowly, a lot of investment, but has been well received in the public markets.
Well, great. Well, thank you for coming and sharing all this with us this morning in studio. We appreciate it.
Great.
And this is Shanna Dethi at Digital Health Live at CES 2018, presented by United Healthcare.